Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. It's good to be back here in Texas. Thank you guys for all the well wishes with my family and I, and things are doing better. We're getting better. May have to go back and forth just with travel and whatnot over the next few months here, but just thankful for everything and good to be back in Texas with my wife and my family here. So, a lot of you guys have been hitting me up in regards to Urban Meyer and everything that's going on with the coaching search. Did he say no? Is he still in play? What's going on at Texas? I'm gonna share my thoughts, and we'll go from there. Before I do that, I want to hit on two things. First off, rest in peace, Coach Fred Akers, who passed away, I believe, at the age of 82, if I'm not mistaken. Former coach of the Texas Longhorns for 10 years, back in the late 70s, early 80s, and has kind of been around the Austin area and the Central Texas area since then as an ambassador of the program and somebody who was beloved locally. I got to hear some stories today on the local radio about Coach Akers and just the type of person he was, and upbeat, always positive, sometimes to a fault, as some said, but just an amazing person to be around for those that got to really know him, and sometimes got a bad beat as a coach. So I'd love to hear some stories or get some comments for those of you who are around. That definitely predates my fandom in regards to Texas, but it was really cool, hearing stuff from people like Earl Campbell and those who knew Coach Akers. So rest in peace and prayers to his family. While you're here, and before we get on into the meat of the video, please hit that like button and share the content, subscribe, whatever you can do to support the channel. Those are the biggest ways you can help support us and help us grow. Helps the algorithm. Y'all know the deal. It's attendance here. Now on to Urban Meyer. Allegedly, he said no, consulted with his family. We knew what the health challenges were. We know a lot about Urban Meyer, just his resume as a football coach is impeccable. And Chris Del Conte, Jay Hartzell, these folks out here are saying, hey, we want to go take a shot at, boosters, everybody. Let's go take a shot and pursue Urban Meyer. I have no problem with Texas doing that behind closed doors and in a, with discretion. Now, unfortunately, discretion doesn't exist at the University of Texas. So as we're trying to play a football season during a pandemic with a coach that's currently employed, and that public show of support is fading from Del Conte and the higher ups, it causes a lot of tension within the fan base. It causes a lot of tension within the media, now the national media, and it's become a circus. Now, with Urban Meyer, would it be a circus if he had said yes and comes on board? No, because you don't care. You got your guy. And that's the point. Again, I have no problem with them taking the shot. It's just unfortunate how things have played out and how ugly it's gotten. Now, me being a Texas fan as long as I've been, I kind of anticipated this from a standpoint of how messy we always are and how sloppy things can get in terms of just understanding, expectations. Because I'm going to get into some of that stuff just in regards to our staff and how our staff, as well as just where Texas has been since the beginning of the Big 12, because that coincides perfectly with the start of my own personal fandom. But this can extend over really the last 40 years. As I said in the previous video, 7 conference titles in 40 years. So since 1980, only 7. Now, Chris Del Conte, he did what he had to do. And now you have people that are still holding on, not people that you're seeing in the media, but people that are still holding on saying, hey, Urban Meyer could still be in play, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's just a ploy to wait till after National Signing Day. I think the health stuff was real, and that's why, again, I didn't put a whole bunch of weight into it. But as Josh Pate pointed out on Late Kick, on 247 Sports. Because this is what Tran and I said after the Kansas State game in our recap. Go back and watch the end of the recap when we address this, because our thoughts haven't changed. And the reason why we said what we said on the recap is because we already kind of caught wind that things were going in the direction that they were going, with him probably turning down the gig. And that's why we turned everything to, okay, what's your plan B? And we had a 10-minute discussion about plan B. And there is no consensus plan B. And that's why I have been hard body. I know Trans feels the same way about, if you don't have a plan B, then you need to roll back with Tom Herman in 2021 and this same staff. And let's see what they got outside of a pandemic and dealing with all the COVID and unrest, everything that they've had to go through. So plan B, what is it? If it's not Tom Herman, as Josh Pate pointed out perfectly, if there is not a discernible upgrade from Tom Herman available, you have to pinpoint that. That needs to be your plan B. And people, you guys that are interacting with me on Twitter or Instagram, all sending me DMs, sending me tweets, all this type of stuff about, well, how about this coach? How about Steve Sarkisian? How about Mario Cristobal? How about Luke Fickell? How about James Franklin? Like, are these people discernible upgrades from Tom Herman? Now, before you answer that question, you may say, well, yeah, right now, some of them may be, some of them aren't, even considering Tom's current resume. But look at Tom's resume before he got to Texas. Everyone was saying that was the hot name. He was the dude. He was the upstart coordinator who was bona fide quarterback whisperer at Ohio State. They did their damn thing. He goes to Houston, wins again, has a bunch of success. Not just us, but LSU's after the guy. And now all Tom Herman has done is basically got Texas back to what Texas has been on average over the last 40 years. On average. Because we were elite for 9 seasons in the 2000s. And boy, was that fun. Because that's the meat of my fandom growing up. That sounds weird. But in terms of just, that's the bulk of my fandom in terms of what I was around and got to see from a talent perspective, from a winning perspective. Okay. But before those 9 seasons, so 1996 to 2001, Texas won the inaugural Big 12 championship. I think they finished 23 overall, ranked 23rd overall in the final polls. And then they fired the coach, and then Mac Brown gets hired, and they have a few 9-win seasons, 3 losses, 5 losses, kind of similar to Tom Herman. And then boom, they hit. And then 2001, they're now contenders, and they're in the mix all the way through 2009. And then 2010 hits, and they go 5-7. And for the next decade through the present, they've had 1 10-win season. They finished, how many times has Texas finished in the top 25 since 2010? 3 times. Now we're ranked, so we're about maybe 4 times if you count this current season that we're in, depending on where we end up. We've been in the conference championship game 1 time, which is under Tom Herman, in 10 years. So that's what I'm saying. All he's done is just maintain, and that's why it's a very polarizing topic too, because it's like on one end of the spectrum, you can make the argument, which I'm making, which is he should, if we don't have Urban Meyer on board, then you stick with Tom Herman, because it's not as bad as you think based upon your expectations of where the program should be. And what I mean by that is, when you look at Tom Herman even coming into this season, we all expected to win the Big 12. It's been a disappointment. Depending on if they play this Kansas game this weekend, they'll either finish 6-3 or 7-3. With what they had returning, experience, expectations, the momentum of the bowl game, I get it. I'm frustrated. It's not good enough. And if I can upgrade and get a high-level coach, championship-level coach that can get us over that next hump and get us to where we need to be, to where we are in the mix to dethrone Oklahoma. We are in the mix to have playoff conversations and be up there with those teams at the elite level that also have the same resources and facilities that we do. Great. But let's also take a step back and look at it from the fact of this guy also had to replace his entire staff. He replaced the entire staff. Now, that's also his fault, by the way. It's not like he came in and inherited a bad staff. And then, one of the issues we've had recently, which has contributed to these losses over the last 10 years, is when we get a new coach, the staff hires have been very poor. Charlie Strong, now Tom Herman. The initial crop, almost everybody's gone outside of Stan Drayton and Oscar Giles and just a handful of people, right? And Brian Carrington, if you want to count him. So now we revamped the whole staff, but we revamped the staff, a pandemic hits, and we have no real offseason. So your advantage with all the experience is kind of gone because you're trying to install a new defense and a new offense. And please take a look at how all of the teams that had to go through these changes, they didn't know that this was going to happen, but the teams that have gone through this, even at the NFL level, are struggling in comparison to those who have maintained staff continuity. That is not, you can't, I do think 7-3 is good enough for me to say, I'd like to see what the staff looks like in year 2 without those conditions of having to install everything via Zoom. That's all I'm saying. Let's see what it looks like. And if it's the same product and it's still disappointing, then yes, you have to continue to move on. But I do think we have seen some signs this season to where there could potentially be an uptick. I don't think that they've gotten enough credit for their in-season development. This defense got better once they got more time to really acclimate and find themselves, especially under Chris Ash. I think we all agree, as of now, that's a good hire. Now, we can talk about the history of Texas defensive coordinators and their first-year successes versus what they've done after that over the last 10 years. I think that's something to note, even with Chris Ash. However, the in-season development has been excellent, in my opinion, on defense. Now, offensively, we've somehow lost ourselves and then found ourselves against Kansas State too little too late. But offensively, I don't know what offense we were running, if it was Mike Yurcich's offense or Tom Herman's. And this is something, if I'm Chris Del Conte, I make explicitly clear to Tom Herman, if you're coming back in 2021, we better be running Mike Yurcich's offense. Now, to add to that point, I would like to see Mike Yurcich's offense with a quarterback that he wants and that he's not inheriting. I've only seen Tom Herman really – at the beginning, it was Shane Buechele a little bit, but we've really only seen Tom Herman run these last 4 years under Sam Mellinger, who's been a Warrior. We love him, ambassador of the program, but has a limited skill set. We have 3 very talented quarterbacks in the quarterback room. Mike Yurcich is supposed to be a quarterback guy. If he has a real offseason to do what he wants to do between Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, Jaquindon Jackson, I think he can find a reasonable guy that maybe fits this in conjunction with what we're finding with the offensive line and a budding star in Bijan Robinson. Let's see what it looks like. Now, even if I run it back with Tom, I'd still probably in the boat of, hey, we've got to make an upgrade with the offensive line coach at the bare minimum. We might have to look at the wide receiver coach. I like Andre Coleman, but this year, maybe his coaching style doesn't necessarily gel with what Mike Yurcich wants to do, and it was more gelling with what the old power spread with Tim Beck and Tom Herman. That needs to be evaluated. In my opinion, at the minimum, the offensive line stuff, and I've said this from the beginning of the season, we're going to have to go probably in another direction regardless of who the head coach is there. But when you're talking about buying out a coach and then bringing in another coach, and now it's a coach that is somebody who we're doing the same thing over and over again. And it hasn't been effective. Like Nick Saban, we pursued him. right? And then you didn't end up with him, and you go all the way down to Charlie Strong, so want to take the job. All these people that were seemingly good coaches and had great resumes coming in, and then they get here and struggle because this isn't the type of job. And we've made it this way, booster, because that's the common denominators, the boosters, the just the overall environment here. I'm not saying that the fans are the reason why they're losing the games. The fans don't make tackles. The fans don't throw the football. But I'm saying the overall environment and the things that they have to battle and deal with. Tom Herman looks like he's aging through a presidency. It shouldn't really be that way as a head coach. Even look at people, they throw out Matt Campbell, who has, very good coach, has beaten us recently, but is he just a discernible home run hire over a Tom Herman that would succeed in this environment, this climate, being a Midwestern guy? We have to factor in this whole weird Texas mindset. We're Texas. The rest of the country doesn't feel that way. And this is something that, and what I mean by that is, we're Texas, we should get whoever we want. We're Texas, this job's better than other jobs. Well, maybe in your opinion, but unfortunately, we struggle with trying to look at things from other people's perspectives, especially across the country, because we've put ourselves in a bubble where we think football matters more than anywhere else to us, and football is better here and all this type of stuff. And to some degree, I agree. In some elements, I agree. In some elements, I disagree. And I have that perspective of coming from another part of the country. People are talking about, let's go talk to Brian Kelly. Sure, let's go talk to Brian Kelly. Is coaching Notre Dame and then moving to Texas, is that an upgrade for him, or is that a lateral move? Like, that's a lateral move. And some would say that's a downgrade, considering Notre Dame's brand is in some cases above Texas's brand. But diehard Texas fan will never want to admit that. I'm not admitting that, but we have to be honest and real with ourselves, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should settle and expect, crap or whatever, but 4 years in, we're building. We have to continue to build and evaluate these coordinators that everybody was excited about before the season started. And they haven't gotten a full fair chance to do the work needed and to do what they need to do to develop these kids. And with the little bit we've seen, some of them some of it is working. But it's not going fast enough because we're also impatient. We've been impatient with this coaching process, and that's why we're kind of here with the Urban Meyer stuff. So it's frustrating when we get to a point where we could potentially have somebody to come here, and you guys watch my culture video and the whole savior complex. But, when we have an opportunity to say, you know what, it's not comfortable, it's not right, let's continue to move forward and build this thing up, and maybe we go 9-3 next year. But shoot, how long have we been back? Back behind other teams, not back in terms of being good, but back behind other teams, right? And then to the point where we can get to where we are on that level of competing year in, year out. I get the frustration with Tom Herman. He has G5 mentality. He has G5 mentality in terms of, winning is hard and all these games are going to be close. And that's a problem for me. The game management stuff and just some of the decision-making, it's a problem for me. Some of you guys say you want more of an X and O coach like a Lincoln Riley. Tom Herman's trying to be both. Because to me, you're either X and O coach or you're a CEO, game manager type of coach. He struggled with both of those. That has to improve. The recruiting embarrassments, the Brockermeyers, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Caleb Burton, Austin talent, people, Garrett Wilson, Levi Jones, like people just leaving this area. It's been tough. I live here. I know it. It's been tough. But if you don't have a strong plan B, a discernible upgrade, then we got to keep moving similar to USC and Clay Helton. And I know people don't want to hear that, but where else are you going to go? At least USC right now is 4-0. And their recruiting also fell into shambles, because I know people are going to hit this video up and say, well, Steve, if we hold on to Herman for another year, recruiting is going to continue to fall apart. Right now, we're 17th in 2021. If we finish there and hold on to Jatavian Sanders, I'll take it and move forward. We have frozen eligibility. Bijan Robinson's still a freshman next year. All these guys are still freshmen next year. And we just continue to build and figure out 2022 and hope these coordinators hit. And if they don't, then we really, really, really got to make a move, right? But right now, with everything being considered and just all the crap going on in the world, throwing a hissy fit over 6-3 or 7-3, I understand the frustration. We should be better. All the resources, the environment is in place for Texas to be better, but we're not. Check out my culture video from before. I made videos about this. It sucks to continue to talk about this, but if you're not getting Urban Meyer, you're going to have to stick with Tom for another year, in my opinion. We got to work it out. Guys, I appreciate y'all. I'll make another video with Tran later in the week for Kansas. If we play Kansas, we'll see what happens. Appreciate y'all. Horns always up.